Walling allows you to organize your work in a simple and frictionless experience to help you get your work done faster. So what we will be focusing on today is the flexibility that it allows you to organize your work in the way that you best see fit. So first up, let's start with examining the organizational hierarchy within Walling. The thought process here is that you'll dedicate a wall to a project, and then you can group those projects into folders. And furthermore, let's say your project is really large, we can do multiple walls for that project and then group all of those walls together under one project folder. So let's say that you use Walling to organize your professional life and your personal life. If you look here on the panel on the left here, I have one folder for my work and one folder for my personal. Within work, I've got a couple of subfolders. We've got XYZ project, a couple walls, and then miscellaneous within the XYZ project for some files, and then we have a client projects folder within the work folder as well. Whereas on the personal end, I just have a few walls grouped into a folder. So how do you create this organizational hierarchy within Walling? Super easy. Let's just go through it real quick, just as an example. So what we're going to do is hit new folder, which you can do by hitting new folder right here. Let's give it example folder name. Next step would be if you hit these three dots next to example folder, you can add a new wall or a new folder. So let's do an example wall. And then let's also add a subfolder within that folder called example subfolder. So as you can see, we've got a subfolder within the folder, and then we also have a wall in there too. These are all drag and droppable as well. So if you wanted your example wall in the subfolder instead of the main folder, you can just drag and drop and move it around. And the drag and dropping feature can be used to organize this in general. So like if you wanted this entire client's project to go into your subfolder, you just move it straight there and it's, you're done. So as you can see, we've quickly created some visual hierarchy for ourselves using the built-in tools within Walling very quickly and very simply. Utilizing these features is ultimately up to you. I know when I started first using Walling a little over a year ago, I was cramming a lot of very different information into one wall in just like a handful of different sections. Needless to say, it wasn't all that organized, at least not to its fullest potential. When I came to terms with using many walls and folders to organize my life as opposed to one wall with tons of different types of content in there, that was when I started to really feel the value of Walling in my everyday life. Nowadays, I've got 10 walls dedicated to my personal brand, another 8 for my day job, another handful for my home life stuff, separate folders for clients. It's quite a bit easier to use efficiently and navigate within this format. So let's talk about that just a little bit more. So as you can see here on the left, under XYZ project, we have a brief wall and a mentions feature. So that alone has 2 walls dedicated just to the XYZ project. The brief has 6 different sections within it. Then we've got the mentions feature wall, which also has 6 separate sections in it as well. And this is where utilizing folders becomes pretty critical for housing multiple walls for one project. So, you got XYZ project, and that's, cleanly held together all in one piece just by the folder being a subfolder in your work folder. Because while we could have probably squished the mentions features content into the brief wall, there's obviously enough content needed to know for the mentions feature to have it be separate entirely. So then once you've got your main ideas broken down into separate walls and folders, you can then start looking at how you utilize your sections. For example, on the brief wall, there are 6 sections, 1 dedicated to notes and goals, 1 to ideas, 1 to tasks, 1 to podcast episodes, 1 to important files, and lastly 1 to a mood board. And each of these sections is then displayed in a section view that best befits the purpose of the section. Let's take podcast episodes, for example. Instead of having one brick that maybe you list out all of the titles of the podcast that you have planned, we actually created a whole section just for the podcast episodes using a calendar view that is broken down into weeks, so we can actually schedule out our podcast episodes. And also each brick is a podcast episode, which allows you to add more details, more relevant information to each podcast episode, and not limiting yourself to one brick that has, several podcast episodes in it So this way we've got, a title, the title of the podcast, and a brief about what the podcast is going to be about. All while being able to be moved around if we want to reschedule things, between weeks. Easy to do. And we can categorize them with tags to indicate to us where they're at in the process. Similarly, if we look at the tasks section, we have it using a Kanban view for to do, in progress, in review, and done. As opposed to having all of your tasks in one brick with like a checklist or something, we have each task separated into separate bricks so that each of them can contain, everything that we need to know for completing that task, whether that be a PowerPoint or some subtasks. And then, since we do have each task separated into individual bricks, we can have them assigned to specific people, give them a specific due date, with all that information being very clear to that task specifically, as opposed to trying to convey something similar all in one brick. All while being able to be moved around along the Kanban section view to indicate to us what we need to do, what's in progress, what's in review, what's done, all the way until we can mark something complete and get it out of our tasks section altogether. You could also utilize list view for the tasks section. This way, you've got all of your tasks laid out this way. You've got the relevant tags, the due date, the assigned to, and then you can actually expand each one individually to see the corresponding notes or subtasks. We can then mark something complete when it's done. You can actually customize the section to add some subtasks as a column in your list view, so that when you have a checklist, it'll actually display where you're at on those subtasks. Another added bonus of having all of your tasks separated into bricks as opposed to multiple tasks on one brick is that when you assign them to someone, let's say I assign it to myself here, you can actually then go to your My Tasks section and be able to manage everything that you have going on in one place, all separated out by what wall they're coming from. So as you can see, we have this brick right here from the brief that we just assigned ourselves to right here. So if we take us off and we go back, it is no longer there. Same thing if we mark it complete, it'll disappear from our tasks. We go back to the brief and it is marked complete in the brief as well. And lastly, the other organizational hierarchy tip that I got for you is you can actually create a dashboard for yourself. If you're a bit more of a visual person like me, the dashboard can be quite useful for managing what you have currently going on. So all we did here, just to break it down, is we created a new wall called a dashboard. We created a section called current projects, and then we have a couple links to our walls here. Now all this is if you drag from your left navigation bar onto here, it will create a link for you to that wall. So if we click it here, it takes us directly to the brief. We can go back to our dashboard, take a look at everything else we have going on, jump to the mentions feature, and we have a little section here called sticky notes that you can utilize to leave little reminders for yourself to keep them top of mind. And yeah, that's about it. The dashboard can be really cool, especially if you have a lot of subfolders or folders that you want to sort of give yourself a quicker way to access everything instead of having to click into here and then into here and, that kind of thing. I hope this gave you some inspiration on how you can utilize the organizational hierarchy within Walling to manage your projects in a way that best suits you. Have a good one.